It's been my experience that the term spiritual direction often means different things to different people. To help clarify this term, let's listen to how other respected Christian spiritual directors define it.
In Christianity, it has been a ministry of the church. It's an ancient ministry of the church. And it has always been very focused, very individualized, and very intentional. Spiritual direction as a spiritual practice is another Christian coming alongside another to help them see and to hear and to discern the movements of the Spirit within their life.
It's a process of spiritual companionship along with someone in their journey with God. So coming alongside and a holy listening to what God is saying and doing in their life.
It's a spiritual discipline, much like fasting or memorizing scripture or observing the Sabbath. So it's a spiritual discipline for the purpose of greater awareness of God in one's life in the context of prayer, and it's just listening and paying attention to what God's doing.
Well, first of all, I think that the term spiritual direction is a little bit of a misnomer because there's very little direction that happens in a spiritual direction session. It's much more a ministry of listening and discernment and prayer in a confidential setting where you are actively listening together to God's voice, to what God might be saying to this person.
I think everything we do, say, experience has the potential of having spiritual significance to it. So there's the word spiritual. And then I look at the word direction. It's a historical word, but I don't tell people what to do. That's up to the Spirit. But we are looking together for direction for all the events that happen in somebody's life.
When we think of spiritual things, it tends to have a narrowing focus, and we think of things related solely to the church or to the Bible or to some kind of a narrow definition of prayer for many of us who are grown up in the church. Whereas spiritual direction assumes that God is in all areas of life. And I like to tell people who come to me for direction that where the shoe of life is pinching the most, that's where God is most eager to be alongside of you.
We've seen that the term spiritual direction does not have a simple definition. However, we have discovered some consistent themes that give us greater insight. Here's a summary. Spiritual direction is a spiritual practice, a discipline for discovering a greater awareness of God in the context of prayer. Its roots go deep in the history of Christianity. And although its practice has been overlooked or ignored by much of the church, it's not new. And thankfully, there is a renaissance of this practice. We've learned that spiritual direction is a safe, sacred space where holy listening takes place in the bond of spiritual companionship and confidentiality. In what may appear to be a contradiction to the term, the purpose of spiritual direction is not to give direction or to tell people what to do. This spiritual practice reminds us that everything in life is spiritual and that God desires to be with us in every area of our life. As my friend Ken Lund says, where the shoe of life is pinching you the most, that's where God is most eager to be alongside you. I'm Richard Parrish, reminding you, wherever you are, whatever you face, God desires to be with you.